Come on now. Here we go.
I was camped by a river, but the river's so loud and noisy. I had to move closer to the forest just to be away from the river. I don't know if you can see in the background. You might be able to see it in the distance there.
The river. Yeah, man. That looks like God's country to me. That
Kind
looks
of reminds
awesome.
you of Canada.
Where are you at? New Zealand?
I'm in NZ at the moment, yeah, and looking to head to India in April.
India? But you're in New
India.
Zealand. You're in New Zealand now. Is that
At the
right?
moment, I am, yeah.
Okay. So you're going to go to India. Man, you are a war.
India for a month, and then to do one of the high trails in Turkey over the just before the summer comes, and then back to doing retreats over there.
Right on. Right on. It's good to see you, man.
It's good to
I
see
need
you
to.
too, Todd.
I need to adopt. I'm sorry about canceling out on you that last time. I was just in no condition to do anything, man. I was just totally, just totally spent energetically. But you just got back from.
Well, there's all sorts of reasons why this is happening.
Well, tell us about it, man. Tell us about it. Let's just jump into it. You look great.
Are
You
we
look
rock
fantastic.
and rolling?
Yeah. Let's just give it a little bit. Let's give it a little bit longer because they're kind of
Yeah,
suppressing.
I've just been in a retreat for 2.5 weeks. So we had light workers, healers of all kinds. Even the new folk that are coming into their throw of awakening
Really?
came to spend some beautiful sharing, connecting, uh, special time in the wilderness up in the Bay of Islands. So it was just beautiful to have them, to have the retreat.
That's what
Gorgeous. It was a
that's what
beautiful
you
setting.
do. That's what you do every year, right? And I'm gonna go as soon as I can get the hell out of this country.
Yeah, we've got your we've got the doormat ready, the welcome mat ready for both you and Morgan for sure.
So there's a little bit of a lag. So if it sounds like we're interrupting each other, we're not. But it's good. So you're saying that was there a different representation in this group that came in January 2022? You said newly awakened light workers, etc. Were you talking about going in country there in New Zealand?
Yeah, I guess what we've all known about for the last couple of years know is that the world is going through a low vibrational flux. And what it's done is it's shaken those who were previously asleep awake, or they're coming into a period of curiousness. They're starting to see themselves more as something more than their names, their occupations, their careers, or their habits and conditioning that they've accumulated over their lifetime. And they're seeking and realizing that there's something more to this journey than meets the eye. And so, um, this, I guess, going through this dark stream of low frequency vibes has shaken them to the core, and it's brought upon them fear that they've never experienced or encountered before. And so, who are all these? Who are these twinkly, fluffy, happy, joyous light workers that are in completely different frequency? And they want to know, why are they on a different channel to me? And so they're on a voyage of discovery.
So what you're saying is that there are people that are newly curious that are actually acknowledging that there is a separate breed out there, so to speak, of what we might call light workers, star seeds, or whatever, that they're actually seeing that and they're coming to you to be the bridge that you are.
Yeah, I think I think probably looking at it more that we're not a different breed. We're actually of spirit, so we're of the same unified field.
Yeah.
And they're feeling lured, drawn to this energy frequency.
Right.
And it's not a frequency that was resident in the previous 3D world. They're starting to realize these folk are onto something. And I mean, all we've been doing really have been planted the seeds from the times that we were children, that even those that were around in the 60s when Woodstock evolved. There was all about peace and love, and at the same time, there was this contrasting energy field called Vietnam occurring. So they were seeing love on one side, and there was war happening on the other, and why is this occurring? And then over the decades unfolding thereafter, they've seen nothing but strife and life getting harder and harder for them. But how come are these 5D, how come these individuals, these light workers or seekers or disciple students, whatever they are, I mean, I'm a student myself, I'm always learning. Who are these people that are coming into the realm that are operating from a completely different frequency, and we want to be part of that frequency?
All right.
And what does it take to be part of that frequency?
Right. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. We're all from the same unified field. It's so hard to explain this stuff in human terms. I want to ask you one more question about that. Then I want to go back to what you brought up, the 60s. And I haven't got into this line of questioning with anybody yet. I'm 60, by the way. I just turned 60 last month. I got big chills, brother. We got ancestors all around us. But I want to ask you something from your perspective in regard to that period of time. But before we get off this other subject, I just want to be clear because I'm quite fascinated by what you're saying. Because I know that you're out there publicly, you've got the books and so on, but I just have this knowing that because of interacting with you before, that people come to you and it's more of an energetic thing, like almost like they don't even know why, which I think is a huge dynamic or part of a huge dynamic in what you're talking about. So my question to close that part out is, so what you're saying, I think, is that these people that are newly curious are actually verbalizing this to you, or are you describing their feelings?
If you know what the meditation called satsang is, Todd,
Yeah.
Generally the questions that are coming through in the satsang.
Okay.
And they are wanting to know more and more about their meaning in this life. What is their purpose? They're also wanting to know, how do I overcome this emotion called fear that's preventing them from living life to their fullest? Because there are all these happy people. How come they're so happy in this realm of low frequency with the way that the world has become? How come these people are dancing around, drumming and joyous, and they're attracting more and more people into this womb of love? And when those come to the reality of their own enlightenment, they're lighter on themselves. There's no past. They learn to release the trauma, the stories of their past, the ideas and conceptions that they have about themselves. They're all totally dissolved.
Yeah.
Because we have the opportunity to live to our fullest every waking day that we have. It's said that 4 million people, when they go to bed, do not wake up the next day. So isn't it a blessing to know that we can see it as a blessing when we open our eyes each morning? I throw out the rubbish about this the concept of having a birthday once a year. I mean, when we're given the gift of life and we wake, we don't fall into the group of 4 million that don't wake at the end of their sleep. You get the opportunity to seize life and to make the most of life and live life purely from the heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that should be cherished.
Yes, we
And
definitely
in saying
come.
that, I say happy birthday, Todd, for today.
No, my birthday was a month ago, but I feel the same way. I just wrote a Soul Speaks a few days ago, and one of the lines in it is that we were making friends of strangers, and every day is a new birth date. Like, so I get, and plus I just know because of our synergy that we come from the same leaf on the same branch on the same tree of life. So, I have a lot in common with you, and I think that's why we resonate. I know you're an avid student of the human, of the soul. I know that you're well rooted, certainly because of your ethnicity, Maori. I might have said that wrong, Maori. But I know that regardless of that, you've not only just taken your affinity for the indigenous just from that region, you've actually explored the world, with your mind and with your body and so on. So you have a pretty good wealth of experience and also self-taught, research, whatever you want to call it. In the 60s, I was born in late 61. I had older aunts and uncles. I had an older brother. So I had this range of people in my life that were like from, 1967, 68, from like 10 to 20. And so everything was hitting, as you know. We don't have to go into the detail. But what I wanted to ask you about, what your perspective was, because one thing I understand about you, you carry things from a higher perspective. You are aware and doing what you can to always maintain neutrality. You understand there's been atrocities. You understand there's been all this BS. But you also understand the perfect design. And I know we're all getting there, so it's not like, we don't have a charge of some or another. But what I wanted to ask you about was this. In the 60s, with everything that happened, there was, in my opinion, and this is what I want to ask you, an obvious, or maybe not, that's the question, but there was an antagonist in the establishment, the energy of the establishment. There were assassinations of key people, the beloved Malcolm X and plenty others, the Kennedys and Martin Luther King. There was the infiltration of revolutionary organizations by the establishment, such as in the Black Panthers, such as in many, many different originally purer, or let's just say purer movements in revolution. So there was this force, apparently, of the establishment, which in this case is the 1%, whatever you want to call it, that squashed this seed that started to sprout. And I would just kind of conclude it like this. I love Neil Young. This is not a political statement, nothing like that. But to see somebody who wrote a song called Ohio about students getting shot and killed at Kent State University in 1969, 1970. And to see that same person, apparently, come out and take such a 180-degree stance. There's so much of a message to me in that situation and the things that have come from it. But to get back to the question, just to be precise, do you feel, what are your thoughts? I know that this, on both sides of this polarity, both sides of this issue, let's just say, in terms of the seed that's sprouting How does it compare to that of the 60s? And in terms of the antagonist energy, how do you think it compares to the 60s? Is it as powerful? Is it as capable as squashing it like it did in the 60s?
That period in the 60s was just one of many other periods, waves, we might call it. And, this 1% have been around for almost 300 years, or 270 years to be more polite. And I think it hits various peaks, and that period was a big period. This period here is no different. It's also another period. This is not, isn't it ironic that since this scenario has been in the public realm, in the mainstream, we haven't heard about any wars occurring overseas. There's been none, because all the militia, all the investment is going into the mainstream. All the investment is going into the other type of war that doesn't involve missiles, but jabbing people. And the ramifications of that are starting to show their head now. And I love all souls, even particularly those who have found themselves caught in the hole. We're lending a hand to help them ease themselves back out and to be healed. Yeah. I think it's important for people to realize that, because there's a lot of people that have got themselves, no fault of their own. They've accidentally found themselves in the situation, and they want to back out and follow the truth of what their deep inner knowing is telling them. It doesn't feel right to be jabbing my body every 3 months. This is just not right, especially when you've got all the plant medicines here in the forests that can take care of your health and your immune system. And it's just like, as Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be in thy food. And so this is a war that doesn't involve machine guns and bombs. This is a completely different type of war. And this is a war of I suppose you can say niceties, because the leaders are saying, oh, we'll trust us, protect us, we'll look after you, we are the main source of truth, blah, blah, blah. I think to be able to go into their domain of truth is for those souls who are seeking, is to remove themselves completely from their box screens in their homes. Just don't even be lured into reading anything in the mainstream, because it's totally fiction.
Yeah.
And journey more within. That is where the truth shall be found, is to understand that you are not your name, you're not your careers, you are not your beliefs, your habits, your addictions, letters after your name if you've been to university. You're not a failure. You're the goddess and god of your own evolution, and we've got to release all that baggage, all those memories and those stories, those renditions of your own misinformation and untruths. Shed a light, a veil of light and healing over those memories and stories, and come to the light of each new day, where you can learn and follow and open up and tap more into the source of your own heart. And the only way that you can really do that is in the forest or on the ocean, because none of it is manufactured.
Yeah.
It's just pure. You just cannot beat being under the stars at night and being able to connect with the animals and the creatures in the forest, the sounds of the water, and realizing this is what life is all about. And rather than imagining ourselves as being separate to nature. Because some people that do come onto the retreats, they come from the cities. They've never been in a tent before. They've never slept in nature before. But when they come to the realization that they are actually part of nature, it's like going on a day.
He'll come back.
You're starting to familiarize yourself, which is totally part of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
That's very true. And people in the Western world are a long ways from even considering something like that. So it's interesting how these people come and they've never done it before. I watched an old Joe Rogan video last night with this incredible guy, an Asian guy by the last name of Cho, a world traveler, hitchhiker for 20 years. You may know of him. All around the world, every country, every state in the U.S. And when he was 18 years old, how the whole thing started is he saw, this was early 90s, so there was no internet. He saw something in National Geographic where there was evidence scientifically corroborated that there were dinosaurs in the Congo. There was a 35-foot species of dinosaur in the Congo. So he decided at 18, I'm going to the Congo. And of course, he got over there and he didn't realize, because he was naive, what he was getting into. But anyway, long story short, he ends up finally going in on, out back, and with one other person, and starts to look for where they told him that this species of dinosaur lived. And they get lost, and right at the end of the, I'm going to die here, they run into some pygmies. So he ended up, over the years, developing a relationship with this pygmy tribe. He hunted with them. He lived with them. And he talked about how they would get up in the morning, how their whole day was constant activity. Like, they're just constant activity. How their bodies were just super muscular from constant movement. But he said they would get up in the morning, they'd walk out of the cave, and one of the tribe members would whistle, just like that. And then the birds would whistle back. Then the birds would show them, or show the direction of where the prey was. And then the whole day would start, and it was this constant communication between earth, fire, water, air, and even ether. So it was pretty remarkable, to listen to something like that and just kind of step into the shoes or the feet of a tribesman, or back into my DNA to connect with it. That unspoken, real universal language made up of everything in kind of a symphony is really what we are. That's our natural nature. And nobody has to teach you anything, right? I mean, if you're on that beach or in the forest, everything you know is known. I mean, it's just a state of being, right?
I mean, it takes about 5-6 days for someone to actually get rid of all the stress and the energy that they've brought with them from the 3D matrix, from the cities and the towns, and mostly from their electronic lives. And when they come into the forest, they don't even think about electricity after that. Because, I mean, the world has sky channels. They go home and they've got all these channels they can watch on the telly, but they don't realize that we have unlimited sky channels out here, and we're getting so much. The reception is perfect. We are wanting to learn more from what nature and the stars, the waters, the birds, the creatures, even the wind points to us, and it just becomes like another language. You were talking before about our ancient people, the Maori people, is no different to our ancient Native Americans, those that lived in the South Americas, those that lived in the Aboriginal regions of Australia, the Egyptians, and those that came from Göbekli Tepe, they all had the same message. We are here to love and to be loved and to be free and to live our life purely from what Mother Earth, Gaia, gives to us, and we give back to her. So in other words, we don't own the land. We are all just kaitiaki, what we call guardians of the land. So what we take from Mother Earth, we give it back. And the thing that's the most thrilling is the fact that we can light a fire and we can hold drum circles and give our honor and thanks to our Sky Father, to the cosmos, to our ancestors whom you talked about earlier. And it's all part of the universal flow. It's all part of what we now know as the unified field. And even if somebody lives alone in their own home, they're not alone, because all they need to do is spend some time just being in nature, being on their own, and just learning to tap into that source of deep, deep knowing within that doesn't permit the invitation of the mind, the monkey mind, to come into play, because this is deeper than the mind. I'm not saying that the mind is bad, because we need the mind to be able to carry out some of our daily duties. But the mind can also hostage us, and we think that we need to listen to everything that our mind, as it's ticking over stories and ideas and beliefs and concepts, that we need to listen to what the mind's telling us. But all it's doing is it's taking us down a corridor that's not serving us to our highest good. And so if we can be able to concentrate more on the breath, realizing that we realize what we are. When we realize that we know of this term called nirvana. What does nirvana mean? Nirvana simply means to blow out. Ha. In Māoridom, we have aro ha. It's that part where it's that sigh of relief. Ha. It's like an orgasm. Ha. You feel so good afterwards. It's the same when we breathe in, we fill ourselves up, and we allow the breath just to release and just let it just fall out. And it's beautiful just being able just to connect with no thought, no mind, no stories, but just with nothing but the breath, and being comfortable in silence and stillness, and just have all the symphony of nature and all the creatures around us. All we're doing is tuning into that source, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful state to be in.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah. There'll be no talk show.
I mean,
There'll be no...
this is what communion is all about. And I mean, to be able to share and to grow and to laugh, we need to have communion. And this is like a sacred communion. What you're doing is a form of sacred communion, because all you're doing is inviting seekers in, and it's no different to a car getting pumped up with gas everywhere. We need to carry out that daily practice to be able to discover more of who we truly are within.
Yeah.
Because the daily practice is not the end goal. It's the actual practice that's the most important. It's the journey of our practice.
Right.
And to know that in life, we go through ups and downs. It's the same in this world, in this realm as well, too, because this lets us know that we're human.
Right.
You know, I know what it's like to be flatlined for half an hour. And some people live their lives flatlined. It just becomes linear, vanilla, in other words. I love a life which has all these bumps, just like a heartbeat,
Yeah.
bumps, because
So
it helps reach deep into who we are, and when we've got our back up against the wall, we can come out charging from our heart space. And
listening to you just basically cleared the erase the chalkboard in my mind with all my questions because they're all irrelevant now. But you know what's not irrelevant in what you're saying, and what is most relevant is being human. So
mm,
I just got shown, and you opened a portal. So you travel a lot. You're also very connected to a divine feminine. Uh, we're also living in this extraordinary time, and you have great perspective from your experience. People bring up time and space, time going away, time's doing funny things. We're just starting to touch the surface of space. What is your what are your thoughts through your experience and otherwise, in your experience of purported separation from, let's say, someone you may want to be with in the physical or something? Given your experience, how does that go for you? What are your thoughts on being separated from someone you want to be with from time to time, or being separated from a part of the world or something like that in the physical?
that's a really good question. I think the gravest separation we can have is from ourselves, from our
Mm.
true nature. I know that in satsang, it's talked about that there is no they, there is only you. There is only you, the goddess, the god, the Rama, the Shiva. There is no they. It's all about your journey. Because when we go out in search of something, it generally will take it months, if not years, before you find something, and it may not be coherently compatible to what you're looking for. I think if you just live life joyfully, following your heart and your bliss, and you are having the shit scared out of you in a positive way every day, and you come out smiling and you just feel like you've just gone to the moon and back, that special soul will just walk into your life because they see the thrill in your eyes and you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. Um, but as I say, there is no though. It's all about, because going out looking for something is just another attachment
Yeah,
to make ourselves feel whole. You're already whole. And if you're not whole, keep going on that journey to discover more of who you are.
yeah,
Your creative endeavors, your experience endeavors. What are the things that you want to experience in your life that you haven't yet embarked on? What are the fears that are holding you back from helping you to embark on a more enlivening and blissful journey in your life? What is it that's holding you back? And normally they're just beliefs,
yeah.
because I mean, we see they're just like a bird, a canary in a cage, and the door's open, but they see themselves as being trapped. But they're uh, too much into that anxious mode to be able to go out to the great beyond outside that doorway. So they like to just watch others doing it all and adventuring and doing all. But what is your job as a god? What is your mission as a goddess? And I don't think it's to be in one place all the time.
I
It's to be
agree.
like our our forefathers. I mean, we can go back 12,000 years and beyond to the Druids. The Druids held their existence in the 5D. It was all about the unified field to them. They were planting seeds wherever they went. They were not a warring society. They were all about the unified field of love and planting the seeds to make this heaven on earth. And then over time, the dark forces came in, and the druids were no more. So what we're seeing now is the reestablishment on the earth of the fifth dimension. And we also see societies and communities being established around the world, not just in Aotearoa here in New Zealand, but around the world, because people are moving from the cities. They are forming communities because they cannot trust the propaganda that will take care of you. Trust us. It's more now around communities operating pretty much like what we see in the mountains of Greece and Turkey and other parts of Europe, where these communities don't even have a television. You'll have someone that makes the cheese, someone that builds, someone that does gardens, someone that makes medicines, someone that makes candles, someone that is a healer. There's always someone that has a gift, and the question I ask those out there is, are there gifts is it true that there may be some gifts that you may not have tapped into yet that could be possible? And I'm saying plural because there is more than one gift,
right,
that each of us holds that is unique to the world, very unique to the world. Because one of the things that we don't want to, when we leave this life journey and go on to our next one, we don't want to leave this world with the regrets. I should have done this and I should have been that, because it's too late.
yeah.
Now is the time. Now is the time to connect. And even if it means giving up 98% of your friends that you have really no connection with, because you have now found yourself ascended into this new frequency that you find really exciting and interesting. And because when we just walk away from those whom we thought were our friends, what it does is it creates a vacuum and allows more of light beings coming into your life. And so your soul family begins to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And again, it's all about the unified field. It's about us all sharing and connecting and helping to reestablish the earth, much like what the druids were doing 12,000 plus years ago, of establishing the fifth dimension on the earth, heaven on new earth, in other words.
Grid workers.
Which is an anagram for hone, funnily enough.
What is it?
Hone. H-O-N-E, heaven
okay.
on
Hone.
new earth. It just so happened to be an anagram.
So, let me ask you this. What kind of like today, like I know things have changed rapidly, especially over the last 2 years, energetically for everybody. Today, on this very date, February, what type of influence does time and or space have on Hone? Like, does it have an impact? Is it lessening?
No.
No impact.
Time is a human construct.
Yeah.
I don't have a watch.
Yeah.
I just go by the sun. The sun, I know exactly roughly what time of the day it would be. It should be when it's time to light the fire and start cooking my meal. Because you don't want to be cooking food and cleaning up in the dark. That's for drum circle. So time is irrelevant. All that is a construct of man, the mind of man. We're timeless beings. The sun and the stars are our clock, really, Todd. And in terms of space, opening up more the parameters, or just abolishing them completely, the parameters that we need to fill up silence with noise. I think silence is so needed on the planet, just to be still and just to listen to the sounds. And much like the clouds, we just let them come and go, but we don't need to invite ourselves into a street fight with our thoughts, with our minds. We just let them come and go. Just let the stories come and let them go, but we don't have to own them, because we're not the mind.
Right.
And one of the things you really notice is the creatures in the forest. I was told a few times that the black panther was my spirit animal. And how often do we see that these kinds of animals, they're always in the quiet. They know exactly what they're doing. They know who they are. And they know what needs to be done. And we operate on a more spatial form of communication, one that doesn't involve the mind. It's more of a feeling. It's more of a feeling. It's an intuitive side of our aspect. And this is why I think too, is that the more we can get out of the cities and get more into nature, we're not immersing our pineal gland in the chemicals, the chlorine and the fluoridation of our waters, the poisoning of our waters, which is calcifying the pineal gland. The more we can take care of our physical temple, our body, the more we are conscious about the food that we put into our body, and what type of food that we put into our body is more important than time or space. Because in Māoridom, it's very similar to other ancient cultures. It's the hauora tapawha, which is the four walls of health. Is the house cannot hold itself up with just two walls. It has to have all four of them, and the physical body is one of them. The other one is the energy body, which is what do we put into our body? What foods do we put into our body that nurture our body for us to do our God mission? People might say, but you're not God. You are God also. You are God and goddesses. And you must take care of this vehicle, because this is the vehicle that's enabling us to do the sacred work that we need to do. The other form is the mental body. And this is the critical one for mankind as we now ascend into the 5D, is that memories. Just get rid of everything. Just get rid of every type of habit and conditioned idea or belief about the world and about yourself, and just come back to simply the breath, the ha, or the om. And there, all the information just comes to us, because we're not the mind. The other one too is the spiritual body, the fourth one. Most important also is that, as Ram Dass would say, is that we're a spiritual being having a human experience. And so in saying that, we must acknowledge the fact that we are spirit. And when we leave this body, this vehicle, that we're just traveling around in this journey on, we will move and be implanted into our next life, into another body, into another body, into another body. This beautiful spirit force, this energy field that we are, it's wonderful, because it just seems to go on and on. And this is like a classroom of life, is that if we use life as a classroom, we are looking to disseminate, to cut away any binds, karmic binds, so we leave this life lighter. And then we go into the next life with less karma. into the next life with less karma. And we have been through our dark, we've confronted our shadows, and it's important that we embrace our shadows as well too, because that enables us to be able to say, yeah, there are parts of us that need working on. There are parts of us that may have not made the right decisions a long, long time ago or just recently. And we have to take favor that without that reminder, we won't be able to go back and serve healing upon our past, because we cannot use our past as a noose around our neck that we drag around in our daily lives. We've got to be able to just give it light and love and healing, and just throw a silk veil over the whole lot and just give it so much love, and then enable us just to breathe and go on forward in our journey as we move on, because it's all about purification and walking away from that materialistic paradigm that the earth has found itself in. We are always looking for happiness in things, and it's got nothing to do with things.
Yeah.
Nothing whatsoever.
The back to that video I saw, the guy that went into the Congo, and I didn't know this, but everything in the Congo is bigger. Like the frogs are giant, the insects are giant, and that's one reason for the science pointing towards these large dinosaur creatures being out there. One of the things that he talked about, well, in his retelling of walking around the jungle in the Congo, there was such an obvious understanding to the listener that you were totally present, because anything could show itself at any time, basically. A baboon, a snake, a river, a waterfall. I mean, and so it just was like, wow. Like, these people don't even think about death because it's as much a part of them just taking a step into the Congo, right? Like, it's just part of the, yeah. So I was wondering, like, in your own experience being out in the forest and even in other parts of the world, you must have had like a range of experiences, to include, you had to have gotten frightened once or twice, I would imagine, or been in a situation where something unexpectedly happens or anything like that, or even to someone else or something you heard. Has that ever happened to you, and how did you respond? And, what are your thoughts on it? What did you learn? Did it change you? I mean,
I think it helps if you tap into more of your sixth sense, be able to adapt the role that the animal plays in their life using their own sixth sense, which is predominantly what they generally will use more so than their other senses. And so, like a horse can feel your energy frequency that you maybe fear of being around a horse will take the most of that opportunity. And it could bite you or kick you or push you around, or it won't allow you to ride it. And it's no different being in the forest, in the jungles. There was, I think, in the lower reaches of the Amazon, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, in that region there were signs that said, be careful of the puma, which is a bit like a big cat that lives in South America. And you walk around and you kind of spend more time just looking around at the forest and realizing there's nothing around. But if you just go out and live your life and know that you've got to have a little bit of sensibility with you at all times when you're in those kinds of situations. You can't just go out there unprepared and ill-equipped, thinking that your bravado will keep you safe. Your bravado won't keep you safe if you're not prepared. You've got to use a bit of common sense, and it's pretty much the same as going out into the wilderness, into the mountains, ill prepared. I mean, there's times where, you know, I slipped over on a slippery piece of rock with my 25-kilo backpack on my back and landed heavily on my thigh, and I could have easily have broken my thigh and not had anybody around to call help. And that was just a warning to be present. And I think that's a sign for all of us, is that forget about yesterday, forget about this morning, forget about what we're doing later on this evening or tomorrow, next week, next month. Just be present in the now. And that there was a sign for me at that particular time, was I deserved to fall. And it was a really big lesson. And I'm constantly saying, am I present? Be in the moment. And you find that everything seems to click very, very productively when you're in that realm of just being present in the now. And that is how animals operate as well too. Everything's in the now.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of the wilderness, and particularly in places like the Amazon or Africa or anywhere else. If anything, bears probably just give me the shits a little bit. Because you can climb a tree and so will the bear. You can go out into the water and so will the bear. So it's very...
They run like 40 miles an hour. They're super
fast. How do you escape from a bear? You probably need a gun or some kind of a banging thing just to scare them away. But if anything, a bear would probably be my biggest concern in a forest, especially when you don't have a gun.
I'm curious. About 6 or 7 months ago, I started going on a pretty substantial, I changed my diet, 3/4 of what I take in is organic juice and organic produce in juice form. So without getting into veganism or vegetarian and all that stuff, that's not why I'm asking the question. I'm just curious, someone like you who is really has a close communion with the land, because not a lot of people do in today's world, especially in the Western world. What do you eat meat, and whether you do or you don't, what is your relationship with animals, eating meat? I still eat meat, don't get me wrong. Because that was another thing about watching this video last night. These pygmies, because of the intrusion of civilization, like many of these nomadic type of tribes, they're just diminishing. They've actually had to go, pretty much their diet is baboons, because there's nothing left. A few birds, maybe an occasional deer. They eat honey. And they eat, berries and stuff. But I'm just curious, is that just part of the circle of life? How do you look at that? Because I think that's one thing that the Western people would kind of be out of touch with. Like, how do you approach that?
I grew up on a farm, and actually one of my roles on the farm was to cut down the animals, the goats, the pigs, the cattle, the horses, ducks, swans, birds. Everything was that was my job on the farm. I was the producer of all the meat. I supplied the meat and filled everybody's freezers in the family. And it wasn't until I came back from my journey on the other side and I felt this desire that I had no want for meat anymore. I'd always loved animals, but I began to love animals on a much deeper level than I did in my previous life. And I came to the conclusion after it going through my mind thereafter coming out of the coma, that I would switch more to a vegan-based lifestyle, and that I cut my meat down to about once a week. But then after returning back from Turkey, I decided to become full vegan. Under the the realization that no animal needs to die for my stomach's sake. And kind of look at animals now as friends, not food.
Yeah.
Because everything that we need, I mean, the Druids, they didn't eat meat. The civilizations that lived around that period of Göbekli Tepe, they didn't eat meat either. They were all grazers. They just harvested wild plants from the land. And the Romans also, when they were building their enormous empire, from what I learned in that particular civilization, they were predominantly vegan. And you would need to be able to do the work that they do. But I think the other one that really pushed me over the edge was seeing that beautiful documentary film on Netflix called The Game Changers, and seeing Olympic athletes, gold medalists, weightlifters, boxers, track athletes, all types of sports people, cyclists, pole vaulters, that had won medals but were vegan. Wow. And many top tennis players were also vegan, Novak Djokovic. And I kind of aligned to that, because the more I realized that I don't feel very comfortable eating another animal, I started to realize that I'm not the only one in the world as well too. And that you can have a very, very healthy life just by learning the art of vegan cuisine. And I think I owe a big debt of gratitude to my Hare Krishna friends in New Zealand here who opened my eyes. So I'm just giving them a special mention and love to them.
Right on. Right on. So what are your plans from here? Are you able to travel? Are you traveling alone? Are you alone, or do you have any family with you?
Yes, I am at the moment, which is not a bad thing. But I'm looking to wait till I get clearance and then off to India to look at a potential position there as a spiritual teacher on an ashram of 4,000 people over there. And then I'm just going to spend a month there and then head back and do a very adventuresome trail called the Laotian Way, which runs from a city called Fethiye to Antalya, which is 520 kilometers. So it follows the Aegean and the Mediterranean coastline along cliffs and idyllic beaches that you can have a whole beach to yourself. And I think it's going to take about 5 or 6 weeks to complete that particular trail. And then thereafter, I'll look at doing some more retreats before returning back to New Zealand. So you never know, Todd, I might even come to America on my way through and do a retreat in the States.
That would be cool. Let me know on that. I'll meet you. So you're talking about, because your home is in Turkey, isn't it?
Well, I mean, home is the earth at the moment. I mean, after being on my journey, my home is, I'm only a visitor here, so my home is back up there.
Right.
Back up in the stars.
Yeah.
And so the earth is my temporary home. I don't want to get too specific about where my actual home is because I'm always moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of think, well, maybe I'm just living in a big house and it's called the earth.
Yeah. What's the longest you've been in the outback by yourself?
The longest has been on my own without any Wi-Fi, without any humans. 3.5 weeks.
And what was that like? How did you go in and how'd you come out? Were you the same?
It reaffirmed. It got rid of a lot of fears that I'd held, and I always like to do things that give me the screaming shits. And I was always afraid of going in particular forests, not just any forest, but particular forests where I feel the spirit energy is very, very strong. And so I guess there was a bit of fear, and like any normal human being. But I think that after I spent my very first night alone, because there were no roads, there was just a hiking trail, and no electricity, no Wi-Fi, nothing like that. And I managed to fill my days in quite productively, so much so that 3.5 weeks went pretty quickly. And I think it's something that has been a curious desire for many other souls, because they say, "Oh, honey, could you help me to train me, to set me up so I can go and live in a forest on my own?" And so that's what I do. I drop them there. I show them what to do, how to look after themselves, safety most of all. And then I'll just go back and check on them every 24 hours, just for a minute. I just go in and check, how are you doing? Fine. You warm? Have you got plenty of firewood? Have you got plenty of food? How are you feeling mentally? And if everything ticks the boxes and all good, I go straight away. I don't hang around for any small talk. Long as they are happy, then I'll go, and then I'll visit them 24 hours later, until all of a sudden they become more and more experienced in living in the wilderness.
That's wild.
New Zealand is the perfect environment for people who have some kind of trepidation about the forest, because we don't have any animals here that will rip you to pieces.
Not even bears.
We don't have bears. We don't have snakes.
Yeah.
We don't have lions or tigers or panthers or
That's
anything
like Hawaii.
like that.
Hawaii, they just have the wild hogs. That's pretty much it.
No snakes in Hawaii?
No snakes in Hawaii. None. Zero.
I think we're pretty much the same in the Polynesian Islands. We don't have anything that's any threat to mankind.
Yeah, it's
And
all
so
the.
New Zealand is a very, very safe place to live in the wilderness.
That's it must be that original Lemurian soil and environment. Yeah, I was shocked when I went to Hawaii, because they show you at the airport that there's no snakes, period. And I thought, wow, that's cool, because you can just walk through whatever and not worry about anything. You might see a rat or something. That'd be about it.
Yeah, you see the odd rat, but they're not after you. They're just out doing their own business, just like us.
Yeah, staying busy.
Yeah. They walk
All
past you. G'day, honey. G'day, rat. And off they go.
right on. Well, it's good seeing you,
Yeah.
brother. It was really good seeing you. If you come to the
Thank you for
States,
having
let
me
me
on the
know.
show, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's been
We'll
a
do it.
pleasure. Thank you so
Do
much.
We'll do it again later in the year. But yeah, if you come to the U.S., hit me up. And if you're going to do something over here and I'm available, I'd love to collaborate.
Okay, I'm going to pencil that into my schedule. I'll just let the committee know, and
Yeah.
it's a done deal.
Right on. Well, come on. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'll see you later, brother.
Sure. Love you, brother. Love to Morgan.
Okay.